Every generation thinks they had it harder than the one before. Your grandparents had wars, your parents had recessions, and today's young Australians, they have something completely different. A housing market that feels impossible to enter, higher living costs, bigger debts, and a growing feeling that no matter how hard they work, they're falling behind. That's why you've probably heard a claim getting repeated more and more lately. This could be the first generation in living memory to end up worse off than their parents. Now that's a huge statement, because Australia has spent decades getting richer. Technology improved, wages grew, living standards increased. So how can a country become wealthier while young people feel poorer? The answer isn't laziness. It's not avocado toast. And it's not because young people suddenly forgot how to work. The real answer lies in something much bigger. A system that was built for an Australia that no longer exists. To understand today's generation gap, we need to go back to the 1950s and 1960s. Australia was booming. The economy was growing rapidly. People were having lots of children. And that created what became known as the baby boom generation. At first, this was fantastic for the economy. Lots of workers, lots of taxpayers, lots of people buying homes. But here's what nobody talks about. Those babies eventually got old. Today, that massive generation is moving into retirement, and that's creating a mathematical problem. Back in 1975, Australia had about 7 working-age people supporting every retiree. Today, that number is closer to 4. Think about that for a second. Imagine 7 people carrying a heavy couch. Now imagine only 4 people carrying that exact same couch. The couch didn't get heavier, there are just fewer people carrying it. That's exactly what's happening to Australia's economy. Here's where things get interesting. Retirees don't stop using government services. They still need healthcare, hospitals, aged care, infrastructure, government support. In fact, older Australians often use more public services than younger Australians. And there's nothing wrong with that. The problem is who pays for it. A smaller working population is now funding a larger retired population, which means younger workers are carrying more of the economic burden. Most people think the generation gap is about housing, but housing is actually just one symptom. Underneath it is something much bigger. Australia's tax system was largely designed for a younger country, a country with lots of workers and fewer retirees. But demographics changed. The system didn't. And now the pressure is starting to show. Now let's talk about the thing everyone notices: housing. Over the last 25 years, Australian house prices increased roughly 5 times. Incomes? Only about doubled. And that's where the frustration comes from. Imagine if salaries had increased 5 times too. A person earning $60,000 would now be earning $300,000. But that didn't happen. Instead, houses became dramatically more expensive relative to income, which created 2 very different experiences. If you already owned property, you became wealthier, sometimes without doing anything at all. But if you were trying to buy your first home, the target kept moving further away. Every year, deposits got larger. Every year, mortgages got bigger. Every year, affordability became worse. That's why many young Australians feel like they're running on a treadmill, working harder, earning more, yet somehow not getting closer to ownership. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. The future generation gap may not actually be young versus old. It might become rich families versus everyone else. Why? Inheritance. As older Australians hold on to more wealth, particularly housing wealth, that money will eventually pass to their children. Sounds good, right? Not necessarily. Because wealth isn't distributed equally. Some families own multiple properties, others own none. Some children may inherit millions, others may inherit nothing. Which means future inequality may depend less on how much you earn, and more on what your parents owned. Economists are becoming increasingly concerned about this, because when wealth comes from inheritance rather than productivity, social mobility starts slowing down. And that's a very different Australia from the one previous generations experienced.